Audience, telephone, and email participation, and great in...
How does Pods help remove the stress from moving? We deliver a container.
Audience, telephone, and email participation, and great in-studio guests. And now, here's your host, Ronnie Paul!
And here we are. Welcome to Flying Home with Ronnie Paul, right here on KSDI channel 33.2, Comcast 200, and Monterey 27.3. And Joe, believe it or not, we were in Boise, Idaho, on channel 39.4. Hello, Boise, Idaho.
Never been there.
I haven't either. And we like to say hi to everyone, whether you're watching us across the street or across the country or around the world on www.cocolatv.com. And we do also enjoy emails at ronniepaulshow@yahoo.com. And also your live phone calls at area code 559-451-0333. Well, if you were watching a few minutes ago, we had a program called the Joe Olsher, right? Am I saying
Joe
that?
Show. Yeah,
Joe Show. Olsher Show. And this is Joe himself, right over here. And he does, we're gonna have how many shows?
5.
5 shows on before I come on the air. And Joe has a wonderful background, believe it or not. He produces all the shows. Why don't you tell the viewers, now you went to school to learn Fresno State production. You're from Fresno.
Yes.
Originally,
Yeah,
so you
Fresno.
grew up here. And you went to Fresno State to learn to do production and to learn camera technique.
Actually, I went to Fresno State to study geology.
Yeah.
And then I graduated in geology as a geologist and went immediately into video production at cable TV.
Well, you went from rocks to this way, yeah.
That's right.
To that.
That's right.
And you've been always interested in rocks and sand like that. Now, the first part, you explain where that was. That was in the Mojave area.
That was near Randsburg. I followed a miner named Kirk Brown, who was a handyman around a house that a friend of mine was renting, and he told me he had interest in gold, and I'm like, well, everybody's got interest in gold. I've got interest in gold.
Maybe he had a gold mine he was
Yeah,
going to show you.
and
right?
I asked him if I could go with him sometime, and he said, sure. And he took me out to the desert with him, and he didn't leave me, which was a good thing. But I took my camera, and I just kind of created a show about him doing what he does out in the desert while he did it. And I hadn't really planned on it, but I thought, well, this would be something good to do for CMAC, and we can talk about CMAC too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what? But this was, now each show is different. You go like Charles Carraud on the road. Is that how you do your shows?
Well, I kind of get inspired, but with him, I actually did a couple of shows. I did the first and the third show following Kirk. The second show was we went up into the Sierras near Mariposa, and he cleaned out some gutters along the way, and we went to some secret places, because all of his places are very secret that he finds, and he doesn't like people really knowing where he's going. I think every miner is kind of the same way, and he actually mentions in one of his shows that he goes and does some mining, and he finds a nice spot, and he thinks, well, maybe I should, what do they call it when you register the mine and you actually make it yours? And he goes back a few months later, and somebody else has their sign there that says "Stay out," my mining area.
That was on a Brady Bunch. They did the same thing. Some guy, the Vincent Price played the guy with the mine, with the same thing. He says, "This is my mine." Everything. The kids found the mine and everything, and then the guy says, "No, this is my mine." Like that. So same thing.
Okay,
They did it They did a Brady Bunch like that.
Yeah.
And everything too. So this first show took how long to do?
Well, it was just a day there and back, and it probably I had to learn Final Cut Pro 10. It was the new upgraded version, or actually most people say it's downgraded. They simplified Final Cut Pro 7 into 10, and they dumbed it down to make it more prosumer instead of professional. And so I ended up getting that program instead of Adobe Premiere, which I think everybody else ended up getting. So I made a bad decision on that. But so I had to learn the program, and I learned it on this show, and putting in titles and editing.
Oh, here. Hello? We get live phone calls, too.
Okay.
Hello? Are you there?
No?
I guess not. Okay.
They'll
Go
call
ahead.
back.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Where was I?
We were over there. No, okay. All right. No, we were talking about how long it took and everything.
Oh, okay. So I learned the editing program with this show, and I don't know, it probably took me 6 weeks, I think, of editing and moving stuff around and learning where everything was in the program, and turned it into CMAC, and I've done 5 shows since this one, and it's been interesting.
So people don't know CMAC. I know what it is, but tell them CMAC is our friends downtown.
Yeah, CMAC is a
Yeah.
Community Media Access Collaborative, and it is like the hybrid of what I first learned in Cable 4 in the early 80s, in like 82. They had a Comcast or whatever it was. It was Continental Cable, I think, back then.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And so I took some classes and learned about camera and lighting and editing. And
I
then,
did too over there.
and
Rick
then we-
Supner was the guy. Yeah, I know where it was.
Well, so we did, talk face to face and talk to talk, learning about lighting and sound and editing and all that stuff. And in fact, I used some of that in some of my later shows. So I started a video production company on Fresno State's campus in 1983 after learning the basics on cable, and I showed it on Cable 4 and in the Bucket at Fresno State, which is why I called it the Bucket Video Channel. And I was originally hired by the food service director to bring in kids to buy burritos and beer in the Bucket. And so my quest kind of grew for wanting to shoot more than just intramural sports. We were shooting women's softball and swimming and water polo and football and all the stuff. And I would shoot them with one camera, and then I'd tell everybody there, hey, come into the Bucket and watch the game again. And so they did, and then I started kind of writing my own TV commercials and fun little ditties to put in there too. And then I enlisted the help from some of the radio television department students, and my girlfriend, Gordon Moore was like my main guy, and now Gordon's a big actor at Roger Rocca's. He's been there doing shows for probably 20 years. He's very good, and he was displayed on my show, the Bucket Video Channel, for a couple of years. He's amazing talent and quite a good guy.
Now, doing all this work that you did, the production, everything, you must had carry a lot of equipment to video all this, the sound and the tents and everything.
Yeah,
did
right.
You?
Actually, no. What's funny about that is I brought my production facility.
This is what did it. This thing, if Vanu, as soon as Vanu comes back, we'll zoom into that. So all your production comes from that.
Pretty much, yeah. I've shot 4 or 5 shows with this camera. Not every section in the show was shot by this, because I started using CMAX cameras to shoot some of my dog videos. But basically everything was shot with this camera that wasn't later then augmented with some of the CMAX stuff. And you can tell the difference between this
Now,
It's
here,
light.
Vanu, here,
Light,
zoom
light.
into this thing over here. Now, here, I want our viewers to see all of what you saw on the show was done by this.
My iPod.
Yeah. Now, can you do this at night? You can't.
here's
Is there a little light in case you want to do something nighttime or?
No
Built
light.
in?
No,
Huh?
no. I gotta bring lights. To
They
do
make
that.
a new one. I heard there's a new one coming next year. They could do it. It does all the. This tent comes out, everything. You push a button, zoom, it comes out.
Right.
Huh?
Well, I'll get
But-
one of those. then.
Yeah, but that's
actually-
all. That's all it did, huh? Just that thing.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I didn't have a camera. I had cameras for years, and then because I was a video guy here in Fresno and in Florida for 25 years, and I always had video equipment, but it either got stolen or I sold it at various times.
And they go obsolete too. That's another thing too.
Yeah, and so I'm a dog trainer right now by trade, and I do behavior training for dogs and their people under the name Way of a Dog. You go visit my Facebook page and you'll see what I'm talking about.
What is your face? Here, why don't you give it out?
It's Way of a Dog or Joe Ozier. You can look at it at both of those. But so I was working with a dog, walking down a neighborhood, and I come across this thing in the gutter, and it's been scratched up. It looked like it was run over maybe once or twice, and I pick it up and I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And I go on iPod and I took it home and it really didn't work, and I found a charger for it and charged it up, and it started up, and then I went, oh, it's one of those things where you can load a whole bunch of music on it. And I said, oh, great. And so I took it, I showed it to somebody, and they said, no, man, this is also a camera. You got the one, yeah, dude, you got the one with a camera. I'm like, there's a camera on here? He goes, yeah. And he showed me, and I'm like, oh, cool. So this became my production facility. And it fit right here in the back pocket.
Well, that's good. So you've been doing. Let's go back to this your show before we talk about the dog. What you other do?
Right.
This has been going on. You've been doing this for how long?
Well, officially
hobby
since
too? Is it a hobby? Yeah.
82.
Yeah.
Because I graduated in 81, and then I pretty much 6 months later or so decided that geology wasn't for me, and so I started taking classes at Cable 4, and then I immediately went over and talked to the director at Fresno State and said, hey, I'd like to videotape some of your stuff and put it on TV, and he said, hey, well, let's do it in the bucket. And so he actually paid me a little bit of money, and he gave me a food pass. So anywhere on campus I could go and I could eat. And I felt like I was a sultan, a king. I could walk into any building and just grab a sandwich off the shelf. And
Anytime you want.
anytime I wanted. It was like I could eat. And so that was my pay, was food. And at the time it was pretty awesome.
Do you still have that pass and everything? The food pass?
I may.
Why don't you find it and go see if it works and everything?
Well, he's no longer there, so they've changed directors.
All right.
I think one of his sergeant at arms became the director after he moved on.
Well, that's good. Then from that, now you train dogs now too. Now how did that get in the picture?
Well, I've actually.
From this to this, so you're doing both right now.
I am. I'm kind of every show that I have has some of the dogs that I've, some of my clients that have hired me to help their dogs in the show, and some of them are from a shelter that I used to go to a shelter and help the dogs that weren't getting adopted. They were just, they were biters, or they were too afraid, and they had been, like the dog that I have, Jimmy, was one of the dogs that I wanted to help get adopted. And he was in probably a string of 20 or 30 dogs that I had worked with. And I ended up really liking that little guy. And after 3 days with him, I took him back to ARF and said, here's your dog, and he's ready for adoption, like the other previous dogs that I had worked with. And I drove home, and I started thinking, well, I wonder, if somebody got Jimmy and then they didn't handle him right, he might revert. Or I started really worrying about him, and I didn't really worry about all the other dogs. I just felt confident that they would get adopted. And I ended up turning right around and drove right back to ARF and said, I want to adopt Jimmy right now. And they were like shocked. And I thought it was really nice that they didn't charge me for him because I was helping some of their other dogs. And so I hugged the director and said, that's a really great gift because Jimmy I've now had for 14 months and he's a great dog and he's learned a lot. And today I just took him to Whitey's Pets where I was signing some books. And people come up and say, what a great dog, what a nice little sweet dog. And they all pet him, and he's still a little slightly uncomfortable because there's little kids touching him and strangers. But he would have never let anybody near him. He didn't, he was the kind of dog that when somebody would come in looking for a dog, he would run back in the corner and hide, and nobody would really ever see him. And there was only a few volunteers that could actually pick him up and pet him. But so he was about as feral as you can get, but while living in a shelter. Well, that's kind of what I do.
That's pretty good. Now, explain your book. The book you've written took how long to write and then published?
The book is called Shea's Lounge. It's the story of a runaway dog that found her forever home. And it's based on a true story about Shea. Shea was in that last video that the movie that I had. She was the one that was wearing the wig. And when I adopted her, they told me that she had been living on the streets for a couple of years and that I had a month to return her if I needed to because they didn't have a lot of high hopes for her. And sure enough, the first morning I wake up, she's gone. She found a crack in the fence and was gone. And so I drove around. Dug out? No, not the first time.
Not first time.
But that's part of the story.
Yeah.
The first time she slipped through the fence, and so I went through and I fixed all the holes in the fence and I called around. I drove around looking for her, and then I called the shelter and they said, "Oh, we have your dog here." And I explained to them that Shea got out through the fence, and they said, "Well, you should fix all the holes in the fence before you come back and get her, because she'll just get right back out again." So I did, and then I went and got her and brought her back, and thought everything was fine. Next morning, she's gone again. And how did she get out? She couldn't get over because the fences were like 8 feet tall. I had 6 by 8s, but I turned them long ways so that they were 8 by 6. And she ended up getting caught in somebody's garage. They closed her in their garage so that and then they called me and said, "I got your dog," and then other times I would find her, she'd be running along a highway, just trotting like she had somewhere to go. And then one day she escaped again, and I drove around and I couldn't find her, and I was really depressed, and I came home, and she had dug under the fence this time. And she dug a nice big hole under the fence and escaped. And so when I came back, I go in the backyard, and Shea is sitting on my lounge chair waiting for me to come home. And she had come back under the hole that she had dug out, and she never escaped again. And so I thought, well, that's a great story. And so I kind of wrote a little bit about what she might have thought, because she was living in garbage, living out of garbage cans and in alleys and at the kindness of strangers and things like that. And she probably decided that getting free food and love and house and all that was a lot better than what she had. And she turned out to be a great dog.
Now, how many dogs altogether, if you could, that you've trained for what you've done? Is there a total
over 100
so far?
Something. I mean, I probably worked with maybe 30 dogs at a shelter, and then I probably had 70 or 80 clients that have actually paid me to help them with their dogs in various stages or
like
states.
obedience school for dogs in a way?
Kind of. It's more the dog behavior. It's more working with their heads than it is with training to sit and jump and basic training stuff. It's more reaching into their heads and telling them that it's okay to be calmer and showing them ways of calming themselves, because dogs have a way of just being scattered. it's like I call it the drowning syndrome. So if you were drowning and someone was trying to have a serious conversation with you, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about your car, it's spewing a bunch of oil in my driveway or whatever, and you can't really concentrate on what they're saying because you're drowning and you're panicking, you're freaking out, and you're worried about all these things, and maybe your kids or what's going to happen to all your stuff. I don't know, but those things that you're panicking about prevent you from thinking logically and clearly. So that's what I describe to dog owners about what could be happening in their dogs' heads. And so I show the dog how to just stop all of that brain chatter and concentrate and slow it down and then relax, because dogs never really know what it is to relax. You know how to relax with a beer, or you get a professional massage, or you sit in a hot tub, or you take a week vacation in Maui. But dogs don't really know how to do that. So I show them how to just decompress and then pay attention and then connect to their owners.
You know what we used to do when we had the ranch? Like on a cold, foggy day.
Oh,
we converted grandparents' den was our office, and it had the fireplace in there. So during the cold, our dog, we had Labrador and Weimaraners.
Weimaraner.
Yeah, Weimaraners.
Okay.
The dog had a chair. He sat by the chair next to the fire. Talking about dog relax, he had the most wonderful time.
Did he have a little smoking pipe?
No, he didn't have a smoking pipe, but he had a blanket. He sat there, and then if he wanted to go do his thing, he went out the side. Then he knocked at the door. He wanted to come back in. But when we went home, we didn't let him stay out. We put him, a little deal in the garage to stay.
Okay.
But he got used to that. When it was time to go, he didn't want to go. So that's, we taught our dogs how to relax too, and everything too. And then some of them, when there were some strange wolves or dogs around like that, we didn't want them to get in a fight because they lose all the time.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time going to the
rabies
vets.
Or something.
Well, yeah. So we had to go to the fence, to dig in the fence. We put a bunch of logs all the way around so they can never get out.
Oh. Okay.
But one time they got out, then they put, the fence, the little things. They scratched their back and everything. Then we had to
you mean barbed wire?
Barbed wire? No, it wasn't barbed wire. We know that just a regular fence. You know how the ends you see they're it's like this. Where they tie it together.
Okay,
What do you?
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it went on that and it scratched them and everything too. But when they want to get out, they get out. But we taught our dogs how to relax. We spoiled them and everything too. But one question for you: what causes a dog? If you don't give them their distemper shots or whatever, because we had a nice boxer one time, and it had a fight with another dog, and the neighbor had a fit, so we had to take him to the pound and do something. But what causes that? That a dog could be normal.
That's a question for a vet. I mean,
since you
distemper
work
is
with
a
John.
virus.
Yeah.
It's like a virus. So, like Ebola right now.
Yeah.
If you get Ebola in you, then it's going to do its thing inside you. And so that's why distemper, I don't even hear about much anymore. It's one of those things that they'll give distemper and parvo and all the other shots when you get your dog, or when a shelter gets a dog, they have to make sure that the dog has shots if it doesn't already have some indication that it's already had shots. And
because that happened. The dog, we were, enjoyed us, and I don't know, something happened, and then so we got a call that your dog had a fight with the other dog, and the neighbor had a fit.
Well, the distemper, that might have just may not have been a distemper. It just may have been the dogs with issues. Some dogs just tend to fight other dogs, and I just got a call today for a dog that is great with people and great with its own dogs, but it freaks out over any other dog that it sees, and it's like it wants to kill them.
Yeah,
and
what causes that? Do we know?
Dogs, dogs have issues. Maybe the dog got bit. A lot of times, an owner will tell me that our dog was fine until a stranger came by and kicked it, or another dog got off a leash and attacked it when it was on the leash. And so I couldn't do anything, as the owner, couldn't do anything with my dog other than pull on it, while the other dog, who's free, who doesn't have another owner to pull it off of my dog, is attacking the dog. And so then they get a phobia, kind of like what we do. We get phobias about certain things. If you were around a pool when you were a kid and you nearly drowned, as an adult, you don't go into the pool. People go, well, I don't go in a pool. I had a near drowning experience or whatever. But we kind of carry those phobias with us, and I think dogs are the same way. And so that's part of what I do, is I show them, and I kind of force them to face their fears. And so by bringing another dog around, a nice, calm dog that has, like, if you ever watch Caesar Milan, he has Daddy. Well, Jimmy, the dog that I rescued, has become my daddy in a sense. He's a calm dog that's in the right state of mind. And so when another dog sees a dog that's in the right state of mind, it helps them understand where I want them to be in that better state of mind. And so it helps them to let go of their anger or their frustration or their temper against any other dog, and they go, oh, well, I guess if one dog is not so bad, then other dogs. And that's kind of how it happens, is you force them to be around another dog, and that nothing happens. Their worst fears don't materialize, and so then they go, oh, well, I guess it wasn't so bad, and they'll have maybe another reaction to another dog, but it may not be as strong as it was because of the previous incident. And so you work with them. If I have an opportunity, I work with that dog with another dog. And then if that other dog is a good dog in terms of its mental state, if it's not an attacking dog like the other one is, then I can bring the two together and have them both sit and relax and just be around each other without having to address each